the iPhone Air is still going to lose in the market to Apple's Pro line.
Everyone should play Hollow Knight. Everyone should play Silksong.
Okay, there you go.
I think the last few pros have been either about software or about extra buttons. Mm-hmm. And the less said about software, the better. And the buttons, I mean, yeah, they're cool, but I don't think they're a game-changing necessary upgrade that you need to make.
I cannot imagine a more obvious way to signpost that you are ready for a mugging than having a bright orange phone.
If you're getting these, you're not getting them for the heart rate tracking, you're getting them anyway.
I think they really wanted to press the point that there will never be another Bendgate. So they put it in a machine. It took 133 pounds of pressure. It bent. I watched it. And then when they released it, flat.
Welcome, everyone, to the 23rd episode of the TechRadar Podcast. My name is Josephine Watson, and I'm joined today, as always, by Hamish, Hector.
Hello.
Lance Ulanoff.
Hello.
Axel Metz.
Hello.
And Matt Evans.
Hi.
This week, there's an obvious headline, Apple's 2025 product showcase, where we got our first glimpse of the ore-dropping iPhone 17 series, iPhone Air, and new Apple Watch Series 11, Ultra 3, plus the AirPods Pro 3. We'll be talking through our hands-on experience with these, plus Meta's new array of smart glasses, including the exciting new Meta Ray-Ban display model. We're skipping in case you missed it this week because there is so much to cover, but there is one question on another headline I have to ask you, Hamish. You've been playing Hollow Knight Silksong. How is it?
I think it's fantastic. So I rolled credits on it yesterday because I got to start work very late because we're recording this the day after Meta's conference, which started at 1 a.m. in the UK.
Thanks so much, guys.
Anyone that's played a Team Cherry game knows that there's multiple endings, so rolling credits doesn't necessarily mean that I'm fully done with Silksong. I'm about 40 hours in. Oof. I reckon when I'm all said and done, it'll be 60 to 70 hours with that game, but I am loving every minute of it. I think the one thing I want to say about Silksong is I'm seeing a lot of people online say the game is too hard.
Oh, yeah.
And I fundamentally disagree.
Okay.
I think the game is tough, but I think it's delightfully tough.
Okay.
Every time I struggle, I, eventually get through it, or you can go away, get a couple of upgrades and come back. I think that's the thing that people need to remember is it's not a game about just sort of white knuckling and pushing through.
You have to sort of go back, you have to build, you have to...
That's what Metroidvania is all about. So I think it's easily one of the best games of the year. Might be the best game of 2025.
Damn.
Might be one of the best games of the decade. And we're only halfway through the decade.
High praise.
But it's really good.
Oh, wow.
It's phenomenally good. People that played Elden Ring, I'd put this above that just because the exploration, the boss fights, everything, it just feels more enjoyable. And I really liked Elden Ring. I've played the whole lot of that game. So.
Okay, fair play. Do you think the difficulty jump, is it massive from the first game to this?
Yes, I think a lot. The gag I do sort of agree with is like the tutorial for Hollow Knight is like the very first beginning. The tutorial for Silksong is the whole of Hollow Knight.
Right.
Which I had fully replayed ahead of playing this game. But I think like it's just a few differences. Like a lot of enemies off the bat deal 2 masks of damage straight away, which is like kind of awkward, but also you heal more. So I think it does a really good job of balancing itself out. In Hollow Knight, there's also comes a point where you can kind of just sort of ignore enemies because you've got so many like resources. You're kind of done. You can just run around. In Silksong, like it's way harder to get resources, so you're kind of encouraged to always be fighting.
Right.
And I think that that's just a more enjoyable gameplay loop.
Yep.
But it can also then mean it's a little bit more challenging because you're having to fight a lot more, which means you get hurt a lot more. But I honestly think it's amazing. Everyone should play Hollow Knight. Everyone should play Silksong.
Okay, there you go. That's a stellar review. It's also been reviewed on TechRadar by one of our fantastic gaming experts, where it got 5 stars in the review. So 2 experts agreeing there.
So,
yeah, coming together on that. So make sure you check that out before you play. Now, so we've got a lot to cover when it comes to Apple's showcase. We're going to speed run to talking about the phones first. Axel, there were some common themes this year. We had lots of talks about the camera bump and all the tech that's housing. Lots of changes to the internal design structure across the range. Big focus really as well on the camera side of things. What does this tell you about Apple's current focus for iPhones?
Yeah, I think so. People watching will have seen the pictures of the iPhone Air 17 Pro and the 17. So they're the 3, the Pro Max as well. So 4 new models this year. And it really does feel like a big shift for the iPhone in terms of the lineup and who they're going for. So Apple is now addressing 3 types of user. You've got the power users who will get the Pro and the Pro Max, the design obsessives who will get the Air, and then the people who just want a really good value phone in the iPhone 17. And they alluded to not necessarily why they've made this change, but in the conversation with TechRadar and Tom's guide, you can also see on YouTube, that it definitely seems like making the Air has freed Apple up to kind of go crazy with the Pro. So they're not too bothered anymore about it being super light or super thin. They're not going for that. It's kind of got everything, and they've packed all of this technology into this one kind of strange looking product. We've talked already about it, but I like the look of it. You don't necessarily like the look of it.
It's giving brutalist for me.
Yeah, the camera plateau is the big change. So you've got camera plateau at the top, which is like a raised camera module, and then a bit of glass underneath. So there's these two distinct sections, and they're not just visual changes. Like, they have a practical purpose. So you've got the revamped telephoto lens. So it's a 48 megapixel lens, 4x optical zoom, 8x as well, but via a sensor crop, which we'll talk about later. That now sits on the end of the camera plateau. So before, obviously, you just had that square in the corner, but by stretching it out, they've been able to fit a larger sensor in it. They've also put the chipset in there. So you've got the A19 Pro chipset up in the camera plateau now, whereas before it was, it must have just been in the middle.
Yeah.
And then by moving those things up, they've got a bigger battery in the bottom half of the phone and also a vapor cooling chamber, which is what we didn't have before. So yeah, essentially this is, Apple, they call the Pro phones every year the best iPhones they've ever made. But this is the iPhone with the best cameras, the best battery life ever. They're really seeing this as like throwing everything at the wall. And then the Air is like a completely different product offering.
Yeah.
Why is it called a Camera Plateau? It's such a dumb name. Why
Why is it called liquid glass? Why is it called anything?
No, but Hamish, camera bump implies that it's just for cameras. But
Yeah, that's what I
by
was gonna
branding it as a
say.
plateau with a capital P, by the way.
But it's still the Camera Plateau. If they were calling it the Plateau, I'd at least go, okay, it's got
shaped
more
like
than
a
But that's the
plateau.
thing. The camera is not the main thing there anymore. Like when you're bringing up the Pixel, which obviously has that band. It's like, hey, I'm not the first one to be a defender here. Like when you talk about the Pixel, you talk about that camera bump at the back they have. That is just what it's for. It's just for the camera. I think calling it on the iPhone does do a bit of a disservice to how much of an internal architecture redesign has had to go into the invention of housing so much in this one section of the phone, especially when it's in order to sort of make things slimmer, make things more efficient. I don't know. I can understand them wanting to have a stamp on it. Do I think plateau is the best word? Maybe not. But having something different to a camera bump, I can respect them on that.
This just feels like they're trying to hide the fact. This is the sort of thing you would add to a phone when you're trying to hide the fact there aren't any big changes.
I disagree with that. I actually disagree with that hugely. I disagree with that so
go,
much.
pop off.
I think the last few Pros have been either about software or about extra buttons. And the less said about software, the better. And the buttons, they're cool, but I don't think they're a game-changing necessary upgrade that you need to make.
No.
Whereas it seems like Apple has made lots of small changes everywhere, which I think adds up to a different phone to last year.
Yeah.
Not necessarily one that you need to upgrade from.
Yeah.
But it's new, it's different, plateau.
Something interesting what you're saying there about there being a lot more delineation between the phones. There's a phone for everyone now. And that has come at the expense of the iPhone Plus. Do you think that's a loss, a good move for them?
I think the people that bought the Plus bought it for the bigger screen, and the battery life was arguably the best of any iPhone before, joint with the Pro Max. Now you still get the Pro Max battery life, and the Pro now probably has as good battery life as the Plus had. Sorry, so many words. And they've also bumped up the screen size of the iPhone 17 to 6.3, so it's not a massive bump, and it's not as big as the Plus was. But the Air is 6.5 inch, I think.
Yes, slightly bigger, yeah.
So you've got now more size options. The battery life is good across the board, and RIP the Plus. But if it wasn't selling, they're not going to redo it again.
Exactly. All right, so with that, let's actually talk a little bit more about the hands-on time we've had with the devices so far. Now, Lance, you are the primary person who's actually been able to touch, see, and experience these phones. But I did want to talk first a little bit about the iPhone Air. So it's one of the thinnest phones we've ever seen, and it's been a year of very thin phones. That's saying something. Is it worth the hype? What's been your experience with it so far?
So it's beautiful. It's really thin. They re-engineered it. They shoved all the components up to the top, made most of it battery, but there are significant trade-offs. And so you kind of have to balance it. You're like, what do you care most about? Being really light and attractive, or if you care about photography, you're going to be frustrated. There's one camera. There's no telephoto. There's no ultra wide. If you care about long-lasting battery life, well, it's got good battery life, but it doesn't compare to the iPhone 17 Pro or Pro Max. But it is a weird hybrid in that it does have Apple's best chip. So you get the performance And by the way, they put that chip in there because it's the most efficient chip. And it is going to help with battery life. It's one of the ways in which they get decent all-day battery life, but not necessarily industry leading. I think it's going to be, the price is okay. It's going to be for a certain class of people who maybe prize style and weight over everything else. And maybe we're always frustrated that the Plus was this big phone that never had great features. So now they've got something that's kind of special.
And you've tried the Galaxy S25 Edge as well, right? How does the experience compare between these sort of ultra-thin phones we've seen this year?
I mean, it's kind of similar. It's like they have to make a trade-off. So, on our review said the same thing. This is a really nice phone, but you're not getting all the same stuff that you get with the full-fledged, the thicker phones. I mean, they just can only do so much. But, in each case, we kind of feel like these are sort of run-ups to the best folds. And of course, that Samsung right now is the best folding phone on the market with the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7, which is unfolded, is actually thinner than the Edge or the Air, the iPhone Air. So it's kind of like a proving ground almost. I honestly think that it's still going to, the iPhone Air is still going to lose in the market to Apple's Pro line.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult positioning for it, at least in the early stages, I think. I think the real question is which of the Galaxy Edge and the iPhone Air was the most aerodynamic? Because Greg actually threw an iPhone Air at you in the middle of the interview, right, to show off its durability.
Yeah, that was. I swear it wasn't scripted, and the way you can tell is because I looked terrified and I fumbled it. I just was like, I saw it coming and had no real proper reaction. This was me. But then to have, and I've known Greg Joswiak for probably almost 20 years, and to have him look at me and grin and say, "Bend it," and I'm thinking this could go very bad. And it just. And then it happened. And honestly, I saw it get bent further in a live test when they were showing us, Apple was showing us how they stress test these devices. I think they really wanted to press the point that there will never be another Bendgate. So they put it in a machine. It took 133 pounds of pressure. It bent. I watched it. And then when they released it, flat. And I was kind of shocked. I'm like, oh, okay, this is some serious stuff. I know that, by the way, that one way in which because you say, well, how do they protect it? The components, a lot of the components are at the top, so they're not going to bend. But at the center is the battery, and they put like a special case around it to protect it and have it sort of come back. But it's kind of impressive.
Really impressive. And they definitely seem to be very excited to talk about some of those big changes and those fail-safes they've put in place. Do you think that once people actually get their hands on these things, that's sort of where the test begins? Or are we confident that they've got it right here?
I think that people will put these things to the test. That's just what they do. We're going to see a lot of YouTubers do some insane things to these phones, but then we've seen that with the regular phones. So everything will get the same sort of drop test breakdown. We're going to see, iFixit pull it apart, which I'm actually really interested. Although I will say I've actually seen the iPhone Air dismantled, because part of my walkthrough was I couldn't touch it, but there were all the pieces right there. And it's actually such in a way, simple construction, because the top, the plateau or bump is where the components live. Then you have this massive battery, and there's just maybe a little bit of stuff, dotted around the sides, but that's kind of it. So we're going to see that. We're going to see people sit on it. We're going to see people push it. We're going to see the world's strongest man try and bend it. I mean, it's all going to happen.
As long as, like Lance said, the Bendgate situation isn't, recreated where you sit on the phone and it bends. And if I can drop it and it doesn't smash, and, I can knock it against the side, that's good enough for me. I don't need my phone to withstand a lorry driving over the top of it, or I'm not the world's strongest man, and I'm not going to deliberately bend it. And I know they do these things to prove, just how far you can go with it. But of course, for the average person, at least from what I've seen, I think it's going to be fine.
Also, you say that you're not going to have a lorry drive over it. My best friend, shout out Maria, my best friend managed to drop her phone in the middle of the road once, her iPhone, I want to say 8, drop it in the middle of the road, and then a bus drove over it, and it did survive, which I'm still to this day...
That was the first iPhone Air. It went flat.
It did go, the screen was gone, but the phone still worked. Let's move on next to talk a little bit more about the Pro. So Axel, you talked a little bit about some of those design components that have changed in there already, but one of the most divisive ones has been this move from titanium to aluminium. Now, we've already got some mixed opinions among the team, I think, about the feel and the look of that aluminium, but why do you think that people might be getting the wrong impression about it?
I think just the fact that it's a U-turn. Titanium was such a big marketing point of the 15 Pros when they came out. It was literally their headline marketing campaign, titanium, you'd see it on the billboards. Yep. So for them to kind of completely reverse that and omit that from all of the marketing from this product, it raises the question of why they've done that. But I think they've answered it. They've said that it's for heat dissipation purposes. It's now this unibody design. It adds to the efficiency, the battery life. So yeah, I think if you are someone, if they'd rather have better battery efficiency, a faster phone, and aluminium or titanium, I think you'd go for the former, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would hope.
Would anyone? Yeah. It also, apart from the fact they made a big deal about it being titanium, does anyone really know what they're actually made of at the end of the day?
I don't know, Lance. Do you think it feels different in the hand to the 16 Pro and the 15 Pro?
Yes, it totally feels different in the hand because it's a unibody design, right? What they did is they took a piece of aluminum, I think it's a 7000 series aluminum still, which is a stronger aluminum. They carved it out of it. So this part here is it's one piece of aluminum, and then there's the ceramic shield cut out back here, right? But because it's no longer a metal band, the titanium band going around here, and then you go to your ceramic shield front and back, or metal front, you have this smooth curve. So it feels really nice. The other thing to keep in mind is obviously, that inside of here is the new vapor chamber, right? They talked a ton about how they transfer heat away from the A19 Pro. Part of that has to do with the vapor chamber. That's a big part of it. The other part is aluminum is more heat efficient than titanium. So it's a whole system to help it basically take the heat, spread it out across the body. So there's no center spot where you're like, oh, I'm feeling the chip working really hard. You don't have that much. So it's done a really good job. And of course, it's still a strong material. I don't think it's as strong as titanium. I haven't dropped it to test it. And what's really interesting is that the weight difference, this is actually just a tiny bit heavier than the last model. That's the same as the 17 Pro as well. It's funny, in our podcast with Greg Joswiak, he actually said something about it being lighter, but it's not. Oh, in total, the device is heavier, but you won't feel it. It's so minimal.
I mean, when we're talking about milligrams, a lot of the time when it comes to weight difference between phones now, it's imperceivable. I've got my iPhone 15 Pro here, and it is kind of weird when I've got this in my hand and I'm looking at you displaying yours, just how much of a difference that material makes, both aesthetically and in terms of how it's changed the form factor of the phone itself.
I was going to say the other thing is you wouldn't get this color.
No, that's true. Whether or not I want that color.
If you saw this in person, honestly, I thought I was going to hate it. I really did. And I'm totally into it. And it catches more eyes. People spot this phone from across the room.
I think that's kind of my issue with it, though, because we live in a city that is plagued by pickpocketing. London is known for having a big phone theft problem.
A big steal me sign as you walk down the street.
I cannot imagine a more obvious way to signpost that you are ready for a mugging than having a bright orange phone that is the only bright orange phone out there. But that's not necessarily a criticism of the look of it. That's more of my own safety concerns. When it comes to the look, I used the word brutalist earlier, and I'd sort of stand by that. It is a quite functional looking phone. It is quite brutalist in that sense. And it is, I don't think that's a bad thing. It just doesn't feel very Apple. And that feels doubly true when they've made this beautiful, slick, light feeling OS that's just come out. I just feel like Liquid Glass doesn't I haven't seen either of them in person. I haven't used liquid glass yet on my phone. I haven't updated. But I can't imagine two design ethoses that are more opposed to each other than those two. So I'm interested, Lance, do you feel like liquid glass makes sense on that phone?
Yeah, I think so. Partly because think about how you see the phone, right? When you're looking at it, you just have this hint of orange, right? Around the outside. And so it's an accent to what is a really kind of remarkable interface. Now, there are some parts of liquid glass that I really love. This translucency, things just sort of shine. They have dimension. They have that glassy feel. And then there's the moments where sometimes it's overdone and you can't read words because you're seeing through to the background. I believe that they will at some point give us some control over the level of translucency. But in general, I do think it all works as a piece. There's a boldness to this. And there's a boldness to this that I think work as a piece together. And generally, I'm really, really pleased. I think that there are a lot of changes in iOS that are going to sort of shock people, like the camera app and the phones app. But generally, I think that Apple has done a really good job here. And again, I like the idea that Apple will eventually change things up. I like when they redesign stuff. Sometimes they don't get it right, but and I was truly worried about this big, what they like to call plateau. But there's a functional reason, moving more of the technology under there. And again, I think it's a bold look and I like it.
The cameras have been the other biggest talking point, which are obviously housed as part of that plateau. Now, I think the elephant in the room for me is we were all expecting 8x optical zoom. That didn't happen. Instead, we got 4 times optical zoom with a sensor crop, which people have got mixed feelings about. Now, Apple has said that it is of optimal quality level. Lance, in your test so far, would you say that's true?
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, this could be a very long conversation. But what I'll say is that this is one of the best camera array Apple has ever produced, easily. The 4x optical zoom is going to be your frequent shooter for, you're going to do stuff like this. And honestly, you'll see like it's really great for portrait shots. But then, I've used the 8X quite a bit now. And I do understand there's a question of a digital zoom is always going to fill in information it doesn't have. An optical sensor crop says, I have a big 48 megapixel sensor. What if I just take 12 megapixels? I take 4 here, 4 here, 4 here, 4. I'm basically taking the center of that sensor and giving you that. So that's real information. And then it does image processing to make sure that the best quality of those pixels come through. And in general, I've seen some really good stuff. Would I have liked an 8x optical zoom? Of course I would. But I think that we're still dealing with some of the limits of technology. When you had a 10x zoom on the, it was an optical zoom on the, I think it was the Galaxy S23. You had lower megapixels. You maxed out at 10 megapixels. So, getting that match of more megapixels with more optical zoom is always a challenge. Across the board, I've seen really good photography here. I've really enjoyed using it, and I am getting used to the camera app.
And I think there's been a lot of talk about the camera specs more broadly as well, about, even Apple said in the interview that you did with them, Lance, that they don't view their competition as other smartphones. They view their other competition as cameras, basically. And that's something that we saw in the comments a lot as well. The ambition is for the iPhone Pro to regularly be used in Hollywood productions and the film industry. And overheating is a big concern. So that's where the heat dissipation becomes a big part of the conversation.
What they're saying there about they're competing with camera manufacturers, I think that's true from a video point of view for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think Apple definitely has a leg up on the video side.
ProRes as well now.
ProRes and all these kind of anti, Steadicam features and things like that. The new selfie cam thing where you can film yourself.
Center stage.
And, there's so many things for creators and movie makers and creatives. Mm-hmm. So while, they might not have the furthest zoom distance, the furthest optical zoom quality, these are definitely phones for people who get out and make things.
And then we are a little bit short on time, so I'm going to move us on quickly to the iPhone 17, because I think people are kind of sleeping on the iPhone 17 as part of this presentation. Did any of you feel particularly strongly about it watching?
I don't feel like there's a lot to feel strongly about because it's that kind of step, like sort of the middle child situation. You've got a bit like two very shiny, two very different new releases, and the iPhone 17 is sort of the reliable workhorse that people who want the next iPhone and who are rocking a 14 or a 15 are naturally going to gravitate towards. So I don't think there's like loads to get excited about, but I don't know. I mean, Axel and Lance, you're as a phones expert and somebody who's actually handled them, you might feel very differently.
Well, I mean, and I think it's the sleeper hit of the iPhone 17 lineup. Personally, I think, you know, for the same price as the 16, you get a bigger screen, a 120 hertz refresh rate, and I don't want to, you know, give them too much kudos for that because Android
late to
phones,
the party.
cheaper Android phones have been doing that for a long time. But you get double the base storage here of the Pixel 10 and the S25. A new ultra-wide lens, that new selfie lens, and obviously that new A19 chipset, which is, you know, pretty much as fast, if not faster, than anything you'll get at this price range. So as like a pure value proposition, I think it's the best value iPhone we've ever seen. And yes, it's not as flashy as the Pro, and it hasn't got the design of the Air. But for people, if you really dig into the specs and think about what you want as an iPhone, I think, you know, save yourself $300 and really consider the 17.
And it has the best colour array.
And that sage green.
Sage green is so
Sage
nice.
green is
so
good.
nice. Our social media editor got a nice shot of that yesterday, and it looks so chic, which does, I think, make it stand out even against the iPhone Air, which, yes, is a design-first phone, but it doesn't have that personal feel that, like, picking out, I know it sounds silly, but picking out the colour of your phone is such like a moment of like, this is my favourite colour and I'm going to wear it all the time, and then I'm going to cover it with a case and no one will see it. Lance, you've tried the iPhone 17. Is there anything that you think people should know about it?
No, I mean, it looks so different from the rest of the line. It's really like the odd phone out, which is so funny because it's the device that has just the name, right? It doesn't have anything added onto it except a number. But, you know, I'm in full agreement with our review. You know, I saw it. I think that the camera upgrades, the screen upgrade is very important because it's what people have been asking for forever. The storage upgrade, always on display. Center stage camera is a game changer for selfies across the line. And the price, you know, it's right priced for a lot of people. What it doesn't have that some of the base phones on some of the other lines like Google Pixel have is a telephoto lens on a base phone. And so, you know, that's something that maybe people, you know, I'm always wondering why more people don't want telephoto lenses because I'm obsessed with them. But I think that that's something that maybe Apple could do next year. But you feel like in the Apple world, they've done all they could. You know, they've done all they could to make sure that the iPhone 17 moved forward, but didn't move into Pro space.
Feels the closest that the line has ever been in some ways, but like you were talking about earlier, there's such distinctive people who each phone is for. Like I look at the iPhone 17 and I think, yeah, my mum doesn't need a telephoto lens. That's the phone for her. Always bringing up my mum as the example customer of someone who's not into tech but will always buy it.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, you've been waiting very patiently there. Let's move on to talk about some of the wearable tech that Apple talked about because there's a lot to unpack this year.
There's a lot to unpack.
So AirPods Pro 3, let's start with that because even though that's not normally your beat on the audio side of things, they're kind of a little bit more than an audio device now, right?
Yeah, they're sort of like the fourth fitness wearable now because the big fitness upgrade is, Hamish, you're already shaking your head.
It's just, yeah, you go into it, man.
Let him say the upgrade.
So the big upgrade is the heart rate sensing, in addition to all the audio features like live translation and all this kind of stuff. When, you know, the interaction I have with the AirPods Pro 3 now is the heart rate sensing. And what that kind of, it's not just sort of heart rate sensing on its own. It allows you to use the workout app to sort of track workouts, and Apple Fitness Plus to see your heart rate on the screen, and Workout Buddy so you get the AI stuff in your ears to go along with your workout. So they've really kind of integrated it fully into the kind of Apple Health and the work and fitness apps to create kind of the holistic watch experience without a screen, which I think is really, really interesting.
And it would be interesting to know, obviously you've not had a chance to try them yet. Lance, have you tried that heart rate sensing feature at all yet?
I got to take a brisk walk and right on Apple campus, which was kind of cool to put them in and just immediately get that information. I found that I probably not walking fast enough, but you know, again, it's one of those things where, you know, if when I'm working out, I like to listen to a podcast. And so the idea that maybe I don't have to wear anything else, maybe I don't have to wear the watch and I can just get the same sort of tracking. That's kind of a cool idea. Those AirPods, by the way, do feel different in the ear because they are redesigned in a way, and it's subtle, but it's specific. It's like you actually you're like, oh, because I had to fit these extra sensors and I kind of twisted things a little bit. You have the extra nubs. I've actually changed my silicone tips for a different size for the first time because of the fit being so different. But yeah, it's having a heart rate sensor in there and the head gesture movement stuff. Those things to me make real sense.
It's a moderate upgrade in terms of like the headlines, but when you actually think about the tech that's gone into it, the fact they've had to probably pack in a lot more processing, I imagine, on device.
The live translation happens on the phone. The way it works is the microphones pull in and process the information just to basically make it so I think it's clear enough for the phone to do the work of translating it. So it's still happening locally, but it's not happening in the buds. And when I saw it in person, there's a delay. It's not fully in sync with what's happening. So, it can be a little disconcerting at first.
Yeah, I think some of the examples of people having like full-blown conversations very, very naturally definitely were obvious. I mean, it's marketing materials, right? At the end of the day, it's going to show off in the best possible light the product. But I mean, even in the experience we had of using Apple Translate versus some of the other translate tools out there earlier this year when we were in Madeira, it was never the winner on either user experience or accuracy. So I'm really, really interested to see when these come out, how far they've managed to take the Apple intelligence of it all to improve that, because I very much doubt it's running on anything like the software it would have been even 3 months ago. Now, Hamish, you've been shaking your head throughout a lot of this.
I think the live translation I actually do kind of get. So I want to say I think that's kind of neat. I think we'll talk more about translation with sort of our next big topic. So I'll put a pin in that. The thing I don't get is, at the end of the day, the heart rate tracking. I get that it's kind of neat that your earbuds can do that. I'm not saying it's not cool, but I'm saying it seems kind of pointless, right? Because these are sort of Apple's higher tier, sort of like because you've got the Max, the Pro, the regular. So these are sort of like their mid-tier buds. So they're what, $219?
I think $259, is it?
$259.
Yeah.
I thought they're $249.
$249.
$249. Okay, we all got it wrong. $249. And I feel like at that sort of price, you start to wonder, well, if you're going to spend that on a gadget, surely you've probably also thought about, already got an Apple Watch or some other kind of smart band, if, tracking your heart rate, so then you actually want in like a usable sense for fitness. And then also it just screams to me as, we've got to think of a reason to make a new product. So we're just going to cram something in. And I'm not saying it's not cool. It just doesn't seem like actually that useful for most people that will own this product.
Well, it's not the first pair of buds to do this, right? There were the Power Beats that do it as well.
Power Beats Pro 2 and Sennheiser have a collaboration with Polar.
Yeah.
And they've got Polar heart rate tracking in those buds.
So as someone who dabbles in the exercising of the human body in a way that I do not, what is the selling point then? Like, why would someone get this over and above a fitness tracker?
To be honest, I think if you're getting these, you're not getting them for the heart rate tracking. You're getting them anyway, as Hamish suggested. The selling point is being able to take a walk with your earbuds in or whatever, and then you've got not only like how many steps you've taken that your phone has recorded, but detailed metrics. You can also, like, if you're an Apple Fitness Plus type person, you can see your heart rate and all that kind of thing on screen. But I think Hamish is right. I was just about to say, like, is right for once, but that's very accurate. This is like, I think this is a sort of a probing of a new use case, and this will get better and more useful with each iteration. Eventually, these technologies will blend and combine, and you'll be playing VR games, and it'll take your heart rate and everything else, and there will be no need for an Apple Watch and all these other kind of wearables.
Yeah, I think as well, they're not heart rate trackers for your ears. They're really good earbuds that have heart rate tracking.
Yeah.
I think I would buy the AirPods Pro because they're really good earbuds, and maybe you have the original Pro and you want to hear that, new level of noise cancelling and thing, and you'd be like, oh, okay, cool, they've got heart rate tracking. I agree. I don't think anyone would buy them specifically for that.
I think I'm not saying someone would buy it for it. I just don't quite get it.
I agree, actually. I agree that people are not going to buy them with the idea of heart rate monitoring first. Keep in mind that Apple's long game is health monitoring. It's very interested in that. It pushes it hard when it talks about the performance of its Apple Watch. But ultimately, these are the best sounding AirPods Pros I've ever heard. They have really shockingly good sound. The audio, I got a tour of Apple's audio lab, which is pretty extensive. Like all the big rooms, the side, there's the anechoic room where you cannot hear yourself. You can't hear anything except your heartbeat, and it's like really freaky. But it's just all these rooms that how they spend the time to make the audio good. But then I also saw the interior of the AirPods Pro 3 and how they've made the space, the sort of audio chamber, bigger and allowing it to move the sound around more. And those are the things that ultimately matter. People are still trying to get closer to over-the-ear sound quality through in-ear buds. And this is coming a step closer. And so, it's not the reason, heart rate's not the reason you buy it, but it's very much a long game for Apple, and it's a very important addition.
We're going to move on next to talk about some of the Apple Watches we heard about last week. So 3 new watches, the Series 11 Apple Watch, which we were expecting, the Watch SE3, and the long-awaited Apple Watch Ultra 3. Matt, it felt like they really leaned into the health and safety aspect of it all this year, but there's also some design changes as well. So could you talk a little bit about what we saw?
Yeah, very much so. I'll start very quickly on the SE3 because it's like the iPhone 17 in that it's like the least but also most exciting in that it is definitely going to be I haven't tested it yet. At the time of recording, I'm getting my units hopefully tomorrow. But I spoke to our colleague Jake in the US who did test it, and he was sort of adamant that this was going to be the best Apple Watch for most people. And we were sort of debating back and forth about the kind of scores to give it. But the way we both settled on the fact that it's outstanding value for what it is. It uses the same S10 chipset as the other 2 watches. So they're all packing the same processing power. It's not got that battery increase, but it does have fast charging. It's got loads and loads of cool software features. It's got loads of the latest health stuff. And it is $249 in the US and £219 in the UK, which is insane value.
It's great value.
Really, really good. We were talking about the iPhone 17 being like, most people's new iPhone. The SE is going to be most people's new SE, I think. With the Series 11 and the Ultra 3, we had that battery increase, which people had been clamoring for, bringing it up from 18 to 24 hours in smartwatch mode. And there's more... when you talk about health and safety stuff, we had the blood pressure and sleep score stuff.
And hypertension.
Hypertension is
kind
of
blood
the
pressure.
blood pressure,
Okay,
yeah. But it's what they've called it. So hypertension is a big deal because we thought Apple was going to crack this. And the idea that most wearables require a blood pressure cuff to calibrate before it then records your vitals and estimates whether that sort of whether that reading has gone up and down, and it will say you might have hypertension. It's time to get yourself checked out. Apple is able to do this without the cuff, which is
amazing.
Really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And they say it's going to diagnose 1 million people in the first year with hypertension. So that is going to be a big deal, and that's something they were shouting about.
And there's also some connectivity updates that happened, 5G connectivity. Was that across the range or just the...
Yeah, all 3 watches get 5G. The Apple Watch Ultra 3 has that satellite connectivity, which we've seen also in the Pixel Watch 4 earlier this year. It's also, we've seen the Phoenix 8 Pro get it a couple of weeks ago as well. So this is very much the in thing at the moment. I think it's quite a niche feature. The idea is that you can use it to send emergency SOS or check-ins. And Jake was describing how you use it. And there's sort of, you answer a questionnaire. It's telling Apple what the problem is, and then you have to triangulate your watch until there's a satellite above you, and then send this message. It's a really, really niche use case, but I'm sure next year's WWDC will involve footage of like a helicopter rescue that was only made possible by Apple's satellite connectivity.
I do love the Superman montages, but instead of Superman, it's just the Apple Watch. Yeah, it's just Apple out here
Federighi
being everyone's
coming
here.
down.
I would die of laughter if Apple could make it happen where next year there is like a genuine Superman self-insert for the
Like that
Apple Watch.
scene in the
Fittle.
Superman movie with the little kid with the flag, but it's like an Apple logo.
It's the Apple logo being.
I like to be an Apple hater, but I will say like these clips they do at their conferences where they show about like people that have been rescued in some way by some satellite connectivity or something. I mean, like it's actually I think genuinely very cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's fun. It's fun to joke about it, but also you know, at the end of the day, someone's life and multiple people's lives have been saved by this tech being the gadgets, and I think that's sort of why you want this stuff in there. 99% of people won't need to use it, but the one time that you do need to use it, it'll be really handy. I remember like there was an example a couple of years ago when there were those big Hawaii wildfires, and there were people that had no other option and just happened to have the new iPhone and then could call for help.
One thing, you're just absolutely right about this, and it's a good moment to remember that, you know, tech these days is a little bit divisive, and especially, you know, with the growth of AI, but you know, this idea that it can help you and that it can possibly save you is probably the goal. It's the most important thing, that it can do these things that have a positive impact on your life, or save lives. But I really hope that Apple never puts Superman in any of its phones.
No, it's Craig Federighi as Superman in a skin tight suit with a cape. Make it happen, Lance. You know him. Make it happen.
Now, thanks a lot for ruining my dream.
No, they're going to call him Apple Man, aren't they?
Apple Man. Right.
iMan
is quite good, actually. Although the I isn't really a thing. Although they did do iPhone Air. They didn't just call it the Air or something that removed themselves from the I too far. Anyway, we must move on because we are running short on time. Yes. So, elsewhere in wearable news, we've had the announcement of 3 new Meta glasses, and Lance has actually been wearing a pair of them for the entirety of this episode. And ones he's got on right now are the 2nd generation Ray-Ban Meta glasses, but there's also the all-new Oakley Meta. I have to remember the order in which the names happen because there is actually a thing to that. Yeah. So it's the Oakley Meta Vanguard, and then it's the Meta Ray-Ban display. And there is a distinction that they were very keen for us to understand here. It is Meta first on these new display glasses. So what are they? Well, Lance and I have both had a try with them. They have an in-lens display that you can use for navigation, sending messages, a whole host of features. It's very cool. It's also quite it is that futuristic moment that you sort of look at and you go, wow, this is the thing that I was thinking when I was a kid I might never live to see, and now it's here. I want to start by talking about that display glass. So, Hamish, this is your beat generally speaking. So why don't you run us through a little bit about what these glasses are, and then Lance and I can talk about using them.
So in general, they're basically the Ray-Ban smart glasses that we've already got. So they have a camera on, so you can take 12 megapixel photos and up to 3K video now. They've got open ear speakers so you can listen to music, but also importantly, they've got this AI connectivity. So you can hear the AI through the glasses. You can get the AI to see what you can see with the camera, but also now you've got that little display so you can now sort of visually communicate with the AI in some way. And that's going to be quite a big difference for some of these like very useful features that we've talked about already, like translation. So I haven't used these glasses, but for example, I've recently tried the Rokid glasses and the Snapchat AR glasses, which sort of interestingly sit either side of the Ray-Ban display, because Rokid's just got green text as its on-screen stuff. Snap even is full-on, full-color, both lenses, AR. This is sort of down the middle. But that allows for things like translation, which is really handy. But also you can see a little preview of pictures you take with the glasses, which can be super handy because it can actually be kind of difficult to tell what your picture looks like when you've snapped a photo. So I think this is going to be quite a massive upgrade for the glasses. Obviously, the flip side is they now cost $799. Pricing for the UK has yet to be confirmed because they're not going to land until
early next year.
Early 2026. The release date in the US is September 30th, which is pretty soon.
Lance is thrilled.
Before I kick it over to you guys, I'll also say that the other interesting thing about these specs is they're not just glasses. Everyone will also get what's called a neural band, which is this sort of EMG wristband that can read your muscles in your arm. And so it can pick up sort of like subtle gestures. So we saw during the demo at Connect, there were a lot of live demos that didn't go right, but the wristband did at least work for Zuck. So you can sort of control things, the usual like Iron Man style, move your hand around. But also you can see things like he was typing out and writing out messages. And I mean, that's pretty cool as like a use case for interacting with virtual elements. So I think these are going to be really, really exciting. I'm very, very jealous of you both having tried them out. But the thing I do want to know is like, how good is it? Particularly the fact there's only one display and not two. And so there's that sort of problem. I imagine there's a weirdness with the vision, but is there not?
I noticed in all the footage I've seen of myself, because it's only in the right lens, I'm kind of like slightly cross-eyed. Like my left eye is looking across to the right sometimes. Now I do have slightly messed up eyeballs because I got hit in the eye by a rounders ball when I was a kid and had to have surgery. Well, that's a story for another time. In that process, I think sometimes my eyes are a bit weak. And so I found my left eye looking across a lot. So I'm sort of like, in all the footage. Apart from that, though, amazing experience. And there were two factoids you missed about the Meta Neural Band that I must share because I think it's the most interesting things about the whole thing. They're made using the smallest knitting machine in the world. Very important fact. And with the same materials used by the Mars rover.
Oh, very snazzy.
Which is pretty cool. High-tech stuff. That is not obviously the most important information, but I found it interesting. I think all of the gesture control stuff is amazingly intuitive. The actual display itself, like it's not like crystal clear, beautiful, OLED level quality or anything like that. But for the amount that you're interacting with it and the fact that you don't have to just use voice to control it, I think it's very, very strong.
I will have one other question. Does anyone know what the resolution of it is? Because in all the material I read, they just called it high resolution, and that's the word they kept using. But I didn't see a...
It's a number that I'm not going to remember off the top of my head. It's like 42
pixels per...
Ah, yes. Yeah. No, I do remember this. Okay, yeah, 42
but
ppd.
So it's not a, you can't quite make the sort of the direct connection to the resolution you might see on an iPhone screen or something like that. So it's a little bit hard to explain, but it is based on the measurements they use for that kind of display, it is high resolution.
Okay, I'm just going to double check because I believe that is a higher pixel. Yes, so the Quest 3 has a lower PPD, so pixel per degree. So that's sort of higher res than the Quest 3. And the Quest 3 is pretty clear. For people at home, the reason Meta likes to use PPD or pixel per degree is basically it's sort of the density of pixels in front of you. A higher density is really good because it avoids the screen door effect, which is if you've ever got really close to a screen, you can start to see lines between the pixels. It looks like you're looking through a screen door at something. And so if you obviously bring a screen very close to your face with XR or VR, AR tech, suddenly the screen door effect is very, very important.
Yeah.
So having a really high pixel density means that it's a bit more immersive and clear and all of that.
I was going to say density is just about squeezing those pixels as close together as possible.
I would say it did feel a little bit like a late generation CRT TV quality display.
Okay.
Like it had that, you can see the pixels a bit, and it's not, obviously it's passed through as well, so that affects how your eye perceives the quality of the display. But I don't think there was nothing about it that made me feel like, oh, this isn't worth the money, basically. Lance, you tried the Meta Orion at last year's Connect, which is obviously their sort of like long-form vision of where they want this tech to go. How do you feel like the Meta Ray-Ban display stacks up against that as the sort of first step outside of the originals?
Well, I think that the distinction for me is actually pretty clear. The Orion glasses are AR first, right? They're about putting another reality on top of yours, mixing them together, using the contours of your room to understand how they're going to enhance it. This is not that. It's actually, I really do feel like this is what Google Glass wanted to do, a decade ago, more than a decade ago. It's what they hoped for, to deliver this information to your eye, just automatically. You've got a message coming in to help you, guide you on navigation. I did a lot of these things with Google Glass, and I don't know if you can see what I'm about to do, but this is how I looked all the time, looking up to the left when I would try and look at what Google Glass was doing. I looked like a lunatic with a thin bar, and a little prism over my eye. This feels natural. One, I didn't have to look like really hard one way or the other. What I explained when I wrote about it is that what happens is you're either looking out past, to the world in front of you, or you're focusing in to the thing that's closest to you. Like your eye does this automatically pretty easily, but to an outside person, I do think they probably thought I was like not actually paying attention, because you're looking in. I thought the quality was good. But it's just, there's nothing about it that's augmented reality. It's information reality. It's like, get your photo, get your phone call, get your notes, get your music, get your content, put that right on your eyes so you don't have to take out your phone. It's all going to come there. You can use the gestures, use your voice. And I use the gestures quite a bit. Although I will say that I was every once in a while struggling to remember if I was doing this, or if I was doing this, or if I was doing this, or if I was doing this. And so I had to sort of, I felt like if I spent more time with it, I would get that all right. And I absolutely loved when I do this and turn to make my volume. That was so cool. And by the way, you could do that with photos too. Like you could, before you take the photo, if you want to zoom in, you do that. And I was like, that's brilliant. And one thing he didn't say in that keynote, by the way, Mark Zuckerberg did not say, is that handwriting thing where you're able to sort of write out on your lap is not coming right away. That is not with the initial version. That's coming later this year.
I think it's the same for the image generation AI as well, right? Yeah. I got to try that one out where you take a picture of the wall and you say, what would this wall look like if it was pink? And it will use AI and generate that image for you. And I think that's really cool use case for sort of those everyday things. And that's kind of where it feels like these are sitting, is that they actually are coming in as a very usable, functional first device. And I think that's exactly where it needs to be, because if they'd have done this without the neural band in particular, I don't think it would have any chance of taking off. The neural band means that you can actually go out in public and not feel like a bit of a loser, just being like, Meta, can you please take a picture?
Yeah.
Like, you can
like
do
a spy taking a
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it's able to be a lot more discreet.
We'll sort of skip over the regular Gen 2 Ray-Bans. They're cool, but we've already got them. Yeah. They're what we had before, but better.
Yeah.
Most people will probably buy these. It's like the iPhone. It's like the SE. Yeah. If you wanted a smart glasses, you probably get these. The ones I think are actually also worth talking about are Vanguard, these new Oakley visor glasses. It's kind of interesting because they were leaked earlier this year, and then they announced the house-done glasses, and me and a lot of other people went, oh, these are the Oakley glasses they're doing, and that visor one they must have moved on from. But it's kind of cool that these are way more focused on being for athletes than the house-dones, which were kind of more like
skater boys.
Yeah, sort of a combination. So a few big things are, you've got the visor is entirely just prism lenses, which are these sort of high contrast lenses, which are great for sort of seeing contrast when you're running or cycling, because you can see changes in the terrain. The visors are also interchangeable, which is new for smart glasses from Meta. So if you want, they currently just have like polarized lenses like the 24K and the Blue Ocean. They've got really weird names. I can't remember them all. But they're promising like low light lenses, which will be really handy if you obviously want to run in winter when it's darker outside. Yep. The other cool thing about them is that they can link with your Garmin tech and they can link with Strava. So while you're on your run, you can say, hey Meta, what's my heart rate? And it can tell you what your heart rate is. It can also give you updates on your progress. So it can say, oh, you've run 3 kilometers so far. But also, it sort of links all of this stuff together, and you can set it up so at certain milestones, whether that's distance run, what heart rate you're at, what speed you're running at, what elevation you've achieved, so many different options, it seems. You can have the glasses automatically capture a quick video. So the one that I think lots of people imagine that then Zuckerberg said himself on stage is, every mile of a marathon, it can take you a little video, and then you can get a little compilation at the end that will show you all 26 miles of a marathon.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure I get that right. I don't run marathons, unsurprisingly.
I don't know why I said because I don't either. Is it 26 miles?
26.2.
Yeah.
Knew it.
Close enough.
Yeah.
But you can see all of that and it can put it all together. And there's also talk that it can overlay some of this data on your sort of stat, so you can share the image with the stats next to it.
Just so you know, I did try those. I tried them out. That does work. The overlay works, although it's a post process. You also can get some of your stats without Hey Meta once you set that up. There's an action button, which is customizable for certain details. And it's, basically because of the center camera, it's like a GoPro competitor. It's got a really wide angle.
I feel like mile 1 is going to be looking at the crowd and cheering, and miles 25 and 26 are just going to be like photos of breathing, heavy breathing. And,
there's one thing on the auto capture I'll just quickly say, because I didn't realize this until I looked back at the footage we caught on the day. One thing about it is you can't actually choose which metric triggers the auto capture. So it will decide based on the activity you're doing what it thinks is the best metric. And broadly, that is probably going to be distance. Like, I don't think you want to capture like when your heartbeat goes up to like 100 and whatever is bad. I don't actually know. I probably should.
No, it's likely going to be distance, surely.
Yeah, it's going to be distance, or like you say, elevation maybe if you're doing sport.
Top of a mountain.
Yeah, exactly. And that is one thing I'd say. I just feel like that should just be an option. I can't see any functional reason.
Probably come down the line, right?
I hope so.
I think I know we're sort of a bit tight on time. I can see our social media to being like, we can wrap things up. But I did sort of want to wonder about your opinion on some of this, Matt. Obviously, as our fitness writer, but also a fitness data expert, you obviously Metz is not only linking with Garmin and Strava, but also, like Apple's health and Android health apps and like all this other stuff. And then it's sort of all interlinking. There'll be a whole data privacy stuff. Sort of, what are some of your thoughts on this?
It sounds like a really cool product. You were mentioning before the podcast, it's like the best smart glasses made by while you might have concerns with data privacy.
There's a legacy there of a difficult relationship with
there
data.
Is ongoing legal legacies of difficult relationships when it comes to data privacy. However, I think it's the same with any of these kind of technologies, right? You're putting a lot of sensitive information in one place. You've got a lot of privacy policies, which are very difficult to read, a network of these privacy policies. So you just kind of have to ask yourself, with whatever device you might be using, do you trust whoever's making it?
It's an interesting one. I'm not a person who does sport generally, but also doesn't really do sport that... Like, no one wants to watch the miles captured of me running on a treadmill because that's the only time I do it. But for those who are a bit more outdoorsy, I can imagine, especially if you're a content creator too, it being a really, really valuable thing to have these. Would any of you pick a pair of these up? Is there any sports that you guys do that would be fun to be able to have that capture opportunity on?
I mean, I'm sort of on a bit of a health kick at the moment, so I kind of enjoyed running in my Oakley house stuns. I'd be excited to try these out. I also really like sports like skiing and things. I've not done it in a little while, but I mean, I'm always looking for an excuse. So, the chance to test these on a slope would be amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think... the flip side is I don't think I'd buy these myself for me, but obviously, hopefully I'll get the chance to test them through work. And for that purpose, I'm excited to try them. And maybe I would try them and find out actually they would be something I would buy. But I'm kind of keen to see what they're like. Yeah.
I would not, because I look like an absolute loser in them. I looked horrid in them. They are not suited for me at all.
I think most people do with like big garish running visors.
Yeah, but you can also look at some people and be like, this fits your vibe.
Yeah, but they tend to
I do not fit the vibe of someone who moves more than 5 meters a minute.
Meta told me I look great. Should I not have believed them?
I mean, that we can compare selfies, Lance. I feel like we both might need it for our self-esteem. Anyway, that is probably all we have time for this week. It's been a very intense 2 weeks of September so far, but it looks like it's only set to continue. So make sure you join us for the next episode of the podcast, where we'll be talking about all of the latest tech news. And you can head over to TechRadar to read up as it happens, and also check out our reviews and more. Thank you to our lovely panel for joining us today, and I hope we will see you all again here soon. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.